Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we have another episode that I think is very likely to be a special because we are talking about one of the top dogs, quote unquote. So basically, this is a request, alright? This was a very long ago request of this multiple weeks ago that I never found the time for it because I was like, this needs its own video. Instead of right now that we've kind of got a batch of doing video on one show, video on one show, video on one show, I think that this can go there. Realistically, what the topic of this video is, which is Object Filler. Yes, Object Filler, and it's the second season. Object Filler, again, is a show created by Diamondcup67 currently, as of about 7 years ago. It started 9 years ago, all the way up until 4 years ago, where the show eventually stopped itself up. So we end up having this fella, which, fun fact, I actually knew about before I knew about their object show stuff, because I was aware of their pre-shorts. They were very Bill Wirtz style that they uploaded a lot 1 year ago. I remember they want to build a house. I do remember the musician interview. There was another one as well that I remembered, but I don't currently, I don't 100% remember right now, but there was another one that was that was fun. Those things were popular for a little bit, and I remember knowing about them, so it's fun to know that was an object show creator who did those. But yeah, so we are going to watch them for today's episode. It's Object Filler, which, I call it a top dog. I usually consider, basically, I think that over 100k views puts you into big dog territory. I think over 1 million on an episode, I think puts you in top dog territory. And Object Filler has one episode over 1 million, which I think certifies it as a top dog. Alright, before we can go to OFA, we gotta watch Object Filler. Object Filler started 9 years ago with episode 1, which is titled New and Improved. Alright, here goes. Alright, that is Object Filler episode 1, and I think to properly understand it, you really have to set yourself in the time period, right? So this is 9 years ago, or November 2016, right? Which is an immense amount of time ago. It was, I believe, in the middle of the hiatus between IDFB and BFB, because I actually should probably check this. IDFB released on September, so it was kind of like there was like a mild revival, but IDFB was already kind of not looking good to continue onwards for that while. So there was like that. It was at the easier end of that perspective, but it was already like it was a big return on top of already a big hiatus, and then it was leading into the next big hiatus, right? And you can tell by the fact that you can even see what Jack and Jellyfish commented on these videos. Like what? Well, that's crazy. Just to kind of as a perspective of the time, I feel like Jack and Jellyfish doesn't comment on any video nowadays, but like it really does set the tone, and I think it also sets the tone for the shitpost shows that come in, right? Because like at the end of the day, you'll notice that you see a lot of similar details in something like, an object point that you see nowadays in those inspired shows in a more extreme way. And those, of course, however, a lot of those same details, right? Like, haha, is the BFDI music playing in the background? Oh, the mouths are exaggeratingly large, right? And the voices are like mildly screamy, and the assets don't really make a lot of sense, and haha, the kids bop, the hate's fun, right? And the idea B intro just being replaced with 1 million assets of the same character because it's never at, these are gags that a lot of object point inspired shows that we've seen have done, and I believe that my presumption is now that this is where we got it from. It's kind of this is the range. However, one thing that I'm gonna say is that I do believe that despite being, completely a shitpost, it does understand the perspective of what needs to get done, right? In the sense where like they did it. It's very easy for some of these shows to fall into the trap of ending episodes at random times because time's up, right? But however, no, this does everything that it needs to do for episode 1, which is challenge, team picking, and then the other challenge, and then the voting screen, right? Because if it just stopped at the end of the first challenge, that would have been natural. However, it wouldn't have gone as well, right? As if it does this. So even though, of course, I mean, it's a gag, haha, the challenge doesn't make sense, the other contestant flies off and we don't get to see it much. Like, yes, that's true. However, it's still, like, it's interesting. The characters that are here, it's a bunch of them. We end up having, a Kids Bop, a bed, who really doesn't look like a bed, Windowy, Milk, ABC logo, I don't know what that is, I'm gonna be on it, looks like a... Like, isn't ABC like a news network? That's not the ABC logo. It's like a scuffed one. We have like Drummy, who looks like a marshmallow. We have like the remains of the glue that peeled off your skin, and something else that I don't remember what it is, like an onion. But yeah, all right then. We'll see who gets eliminated. My prediction is bed. Let's go with episode 2. Run, baby, run. Okay, so that is Object Filler episode 2. Yeah, that is that is a video. It's it's kind of hard to talk about these sometimes because it's like there is kind of like it's a show that's trying to be a shitpost. There's usually not too much to analyze, right? But yeah, I mean I do find it relatively nice that it plays along to its own guys. When did this release actually? November 27th. How long is that after episode 1? That's actually kind of important for knowledge's sake. November 23rd, so it was like weekly-ish. Like, yeah, it's a relatively simple episode. We kind of just do the elimination. It does at least play itself consistent with these characters a little bit, having the bed be the super shouty one, kind of how they were in episode 1, right? Having Window be a little bit more logical, having Drummy be kind of the super evil one, right? Having Kids Ball be the one that's always annoyed. Like, there's at least a perception of like, okay, right? Like, there's a detail of like at least half consistency to what the hell's going on with these characters themselves. Speaking of which, eliminated contestant is Bed, who ends up getting eliminated with majority of the votes, like 9 votes, I think. So no, with 11 votes. No, sorry, yes, 11 votes, and then the Milk Fella got 9 votes, which is okay. Windowy got a redesign, which actually makes him be like the one character with a decent looking asset. I mean, it's what do we think of this new Window asset? I mean, it's an asset. I would see it in a show at that time frame, absolutely. Again, like at that frame, the only thing that was going on was like season 2. Like there really was not a lot going on at that time. But yeah, the challenge ended up being to run to the end, to just run to the finish line. ABC logo manages to run to the finish line and get the ribbon. However, apparently it was a fake finish line. But that way, their team still won. So that's pretty epic. Which means that Plate, Kids Bop 7, Milk, and Drummy are up for elimination. I don't know who should get out. I mean, Plate didn't do anything. So, I mean, I would want Plate to get out personally, because Plate didn't do anything, and they also just don't look like a Plate. But, yeah, I don't really... But Drummy doesn't look like a Drummy. Drummy, like, you can't tell me that's not like a marshmallow. Like, that's just a marshmallow, bro. Like, this bro is not a drum. Like, it's just not. But, yeah, those fellas ended up winning the challenge. Okay, yeah. But yeah, what am I thinking about this? What am I thinking? Do I think who's gonna I'm trying to imagine, like, if I were to make an early winner prediction, who would I say is an early winner prediction? I would probably give early winning prediction vibes to kind of like probably a character kind of like Milk, because like when would they get out? Right, like they wouldn't show up too much. They would kind of just be there, hang around, right? Sort of not really getting too much into the fuss. So wouldn't get voted out for being disliked. Wouldn't do too many things and then eventually shoot themselves in the foot, right? Like it's looking like Milk could be a strong contender, but like it's it's this show. Like, so the idea of a strong contender is very humorous in of itself. Episode 3. I'm loving it. Alright, that is Object Filler episode 3. So you see, I think that one of the interesting things about this is that you'll notice that this show takes out its status as a little bit more of a shitpost in a different way than a show like, here's an example, Be a PO, right? Or the initial 2 episodes of Be a POR take themselves, right? Because those two were very focused on doing the funny by, visual gags, right? It had a relatively normal story and audio, however, it had visual gags that were kind of the main deal that were constantly playing. This show, for example, is the opposite of that. It keeps itself at an extremely consistent animation, right? Like when a character shouts, they'll probably just shake around kind of weird, right? They have their BFDI mouth that it's lip synced, but not in any kind of way that makes sense, right? And, like, in general, the animation quality remains pretty much so exactly the same. It's not trying to play around with that too much, right? However, it plays itself on the funny entirely via audio, right? Like, that's what this does. It decides, hello, we're going to make these conversations make no sense, right? We're going to make these be, like, awkwardly funny. Kind of like, I don't know what the competition is. Wow, I don't know. That's so fun. You know, and it's funny because it's like, haha, you just see, it's like, it's awkward and it doesn't make sense, right? Or same thing goes with, for example, just making sounds that are funny, right? Kind of like when freaking Drummy gets eliminated and they make, you know, like those types of sounds. Or like when the chicken nuggets are flying and it's just like, you know, it's the sound effect made with the mouth. Like it plays humor off of that more than it does off of like proper like visuals, right? Like the visuals, yeah, they pretty much not change. However, it plays itself with the funny off the audio, and I think that ends up working itself pretty well because it's, you know, it's the type of thing that you don't need to pay too much attention for, right? Because it's like it kind of just hits you immediately what you're hearing, right? Instead of like what you're seeing. If you're not paying as much attention, you won't be able to see spot the visual gags quite as nicely, right? So yeah, I think it works quite a bit better when it's audio. Like it works more immediately when it's audio. I think when it's a visual gag, it's more satisfying. However, when it's a audio gag, I think it's more clearly apparent, right? So yeah, that's what the show does. Challenge: eat 1 billion chicken nuggets, and the plate ate 1 billion chicken nuggets, then exploded and the chicken nuggets flew everywhere, but they still did win, which means that win do eat the remains of the glue that peeled off your skin and ABC logo or Elim. Who's getting Elim? I don't know, like the remains of the glue, let's go with them. Because like the joke is that their name goes off screen and that will pay attention to them. Episode 4, get eliminated. Alright, that is episode 4 of the Object Filler. So, I mean, look, I gotta admit that, like, to be fair to these performances, right, in terms of, like, voice acting and stuff, I will admit that, you know, we're really reading into them, you know? Like, we're really getting ourselves into character here, you know? Like, these super kind of exaggerated shaky voices that these characters have, like really playing into them. When they crying, you know, like, they are doing it, which is, you know what, fair enough. But yeah, basically the main plotline of this episode is that Windowy really needed to eat a pie that ABC Logo wanted to eat themselves, which means that Windowy to eat it while ABC Logo wasn't looking, which means that ABC Logo now gets super mad and wants to get eliminated for the entire episode, and that's like the one line that they say. However, unfortunately, ABC Logo alongside Catchup67 are the two fellas that got the most votes in the challenge, which ends up being to like vote off another contestant. By the way, the eliminated contestant was indeed glue peeled off his skin or whatever the hell, which is interesting. But yeah, so that's interesting. We end up having the challenge, yeah, to make a song. ABC Logo makes the song "Windowy is stupid," and in the meantime, Kids Bop, which you know, I will say I do love the gag that Kids Bop has truly no connection to Kids Bop whatsoever. Like they do whatever the hell the song's called, Dreamscape. Yes, Dreamscape. This was the song that, like, it was known for being the copyright free tutorial song that was like a meme in like 2013. I don't think it's even copyright free anymore. However, it's a thing. It's a pretty solid track though, to be fair. So shout out to those people. The Idea B intro keeps playing like usual. I will admit that the Idea B intro was really interesting. I think that the Idea B intro has a lot of those kind of weird-ish elements you'll notice with kind of like the glitching out water on purpose. The music especially, you'll notice, is also a little bit more out there. And in the way that intro works, and like those elements starting to be a little bit more out there, I feel like you can really start clocking what BFB eventually turns into, because BFB of course leans way into it. But I do think that like you can, within the Idea B intro, I do think that you can kind of see the musical elements of BFB start to shine through if you really pay attention to it, and also some of the more kind of like vibe elements with how it works. I think like the BFB the Idea B intro really it really starts giving off a little bit of those vibes, you know, like you can see how this would lead into that. Honestly, I think still Idea B should probably come back. I still think Idea B should come back. I think Idea B can act as a very solid transition into BFB personally, but anyways, what were we on about? ABC logo gets eliminated. Window E is sad. No, ABC logo, I love you. And then we end up having Kids Bob 7, Plate, and Milk be up for elimination. I mean, Kids Bob's kind of the meaner one, but they did do Dreamscape sound system thing. Who gets eliminated here? Would it be Kids Bob? Would it be Kids Bob? Yes, I think it'd be Kids Bob. Let's say Kids Bob gets eliminated. In this one. Alright, episode 5 of Object Filler. Go climb a mountain. Alright, that is episode 5, and yeah, I truly believe what I said earlier. This show tries to play itself in the funny, entirely based on audio gags. You can see it in this episode. This episode is it functioning at its most default state, right? You can see, it does the exact same joke. It says things in kind of an extreme way, like, oh no! And then when somebody gets eliminated, they do like a goofy little scream, no! And then they end up climbing up the mountain. And then we have a lot of sound effects, like, right? And then they end up being like, yay! And then afterwards, we go like, yo, we're gonna have a debut. But no, we don't say debut, we say debutter. Because like, haha, they said debutter instead of debut, right? Like you see, it's very audio. And then in the debut, you know, the gags beyond just the characters themselves, you know, it's just like the vote me, vote me, vote me, vote me, and then you repeat it like 400 times, then it starts to sound like it's not vote. Like, you see what I mean? Like, and then the breath in the middle, like, that's actually funny. But you see, that's the gags arrive from that, right? In this show, more than they arrive from off of anything else. So, that is absolutely how this show tends to do it. I'm gonna be very curious at how OFA takes the mantle, like, after looking at this, because I think that's really interesting. But yeah, who gets to join? I have no idea. There's a bit of an extreme set of characters, and there are enough people to where I do think that we might have a first person in debut. Do I want to predict what was the first logo? Great for AVC logos pie. That was the first character recommended. I don't know. They might join. I don't know if there's going to be much of a bias towards anybody here, and there is quite enough votes. 8-Ball could join, but 8-Ball wasn't as much of a meme. But maybe they will join. But I guess if 8-Ball wasn't much of a meme, I guess they would like become one. You know, I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna say 8-Ball joined. Okay, I have no idea. But I'm gonna say that 8-Ball joined. Alright, we're gonna go with that. Alright, okay, sure. Anyways, it is now time for episode 6, which is titled Back. Alright, that is episode 6. So, I mean, I got it wrong, actually, surprisingly enough. It was not 8-Ball. However, I got it wrong for a reason that, if you don't search it nowadays, you just wouldn't know. Because here to do, I wasn't in the community here. I was in the community like 2018, right? I was in the community like BB hiatus type deal, but like this hiatus, I was not there yet. So I don't know about exactly what was going on at this time. And it turned out that there is actually another BFDI reference character here, that I think I saw was even endorsed by Carrie in the comments of the last video. Which, come on, bro. Is Hazel Cricket. Hazel Cricket is the former name, I believe, of Satomi's channel. So yeah, like, That's just the way that's just the way that it goes, right? So yeah, them joining makes perfect amounts of sense. I think they also recommended themselves in, so fair enough, right? It was probably pretty hard to compete against that. The BFDI pulling power is pretty large around then. But yes, they end up joining. Challenge, jump over tackle. Milk does it. I'm telling you, Milk's winning it all. But yes, we have the other fellas that are up for a rejoin. ABC logo, bed, drummy, Kissbop7, or remains of the glue that peeled off your skin. Now, there is, alright, I'm going to predict it using this, and I'm going to say it. There's a thing that says that in main object shows, it's always the first character to get eliminated that rejoins. Let's see if this is true for object filler as well, right? I'm going to say, I'm going to predict the bed, because bed got eliminated first. So will bed be the character that is going to be rejoining the competition? I don't know, but we are going to find out, okay? It could also maybe be the remains of the glue, because in the same way that the remains of the glue that peeled off your skin gets eliminated because they're very noteworthy in the voting screen, right? Because of their name being super long. So like the gag is that, haha, look at this, right? So that directly gets more of your attention onto it. It also does that right here with the text going over ABC logo themselves, which means that like they directly also pick up more of your attention on a positive end, right? Like, they'd be the type of character that gets a lot of votes and a vote to save, and also in a vote to eliminate. So they were probably the number 2 contender for me, but I'm still gonna say that bed is my number 1 contender for me, because, I'm just interested, right? But yes, Hazel Cricket ends up going into the team with the freaking window in it, so now their team is not lonely. But yeah, yet again, I'm telling you, bro, the total contestant count of this show is increasing. It increased by 1 in this episode. It will increase by 1 and again in the other episode. This show is never gonna end, boys. What do we do? What do we do about this? This is impossible. But yeah, okay, well then, let's see if I'm correct. It's episode 7 called Debutter Time. Alright. Alright, that is episode 7. So remember the time I said that the show was going to last forever? No, because they have triple elimination in one episode. Yes, indeed. So, okay, my presumption about what happened is that you'll notice that this is post to BFB. So presumably, you get out, falling out of fashion, as the year goes on, no BFDI, it's looking grim, I goes on hiatus as well, right, and all that stuff. And then, boom! BFB, right? Alright then, okay, BFB's here, we gotta make it, we gotta get this shit done, because it's still weird to be making this after BFB, so we gotta, freaking wrap this shit up. So, we try to eliminate as many people as possible immediately, especially as, somebody like, I think Hazel Quick starts becoming outdated, with the name and everything. The BFB intro, you see, replaces the idea of B intro at the start. Then we end up having, the eliminated contestant. But the rejoin actually was bad. So yes, it is actually true. The first eliminated contestant does pretty much always rejoin after when you have a show that gets to a certain degree of popularity. Like, that's kind of how it goes. If you reach a certain degree of popularity, you can usually predict that the rejoin is going to be the first character, unless there is a major lore thing, basically, right? Like, unless there's a major lore thing, you can predict that after a certain point, a general audience would vote for the first eliminated contestant to rejoin. It's just how it goes, and that makes sense. But yes, they get eliminated alongside Hazel Cricket, and then the final challenge is to do all the previous challenges combined. They do it, I guess, except for Plate, which means that Plate gets also eliminated. Windowy or Bed are the final 2. Which one of the 2 will win the show? My presumption should be Windowy. Windowy should win this pretty easy, because, in the same way that, yes, the gag debuters never win is a thing. I will say, however, that I don't think rejoiners tend to win very often as well, right? So I would say that, it's also a detail here. And Windowy has the better asset. They are, I think, probably are more representative of the show, because they've just been in more of it and had more of the arcs. I'm saying arcs with heavy quotation marks. I don't know if they can be classified as that. They can be classified as something, alright? But yeah, Windowy should win. Come on. Alright then, Object Filler is about to end, because it is time for episode 8, titled The Finally. Bro, yeah, hold on. I forgot that Milk got eliminated in this episode as well. Wait, so this is a Wait, how many people got eliminated? This is a quad elim. Nah, bro. What? I completely forgot about Milk getting eliminated. That just crossed my mind. Yeah, because the rejoiner and the debutant voted for Milk collectively to get eliminated, which means that my winner prediction was wrong. I still think that Milk had very solid chances of winning the show if it came to a vote to win, though. No. I think they would have done these things. They probably would lose to Windowy, but I think against anybody else, it would be a second pick. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be 100% for real. They got kind of eliminated by bullshit reason, so I'm not gonna take it. I think my prediction was very fair. Okay, alright, finale for Rio now. Okay, that is the finale or the finale of Object Filler. So yes, the fellas are in the, they're hanging about, and you can actually see quite a bit of the different, this is a different episode. You see, this episode, and the last ones, I think, act as the perfect comparison of what I was saying before, a visual gag versus audio gags. The other episodes play on having awkward audio gags. This episode, for example, plays more on visual gags. You'll notice, right? It doesn't do as much crazy stuff with the audio. However, I mean, it does have some loudness and volume shenanigans, but you'll see that, you're focusing more on the visual guys. Like, oh, hey, this run is fun. Oh, hey, this is the same pose 1 million times. Oh, hey, this is an awkwardly, long zoom in. It's that type of situation. That this does. It turns out that we end up having the winner not be revealed officially. No, I mean, they got revealed, however, it didn't get to, shown on the screen, because I'm not gonna lie, to be fair, that is absolutely hilarious. The show gets sorry guys, I gotta cancel the show, bye, right, as there's, one more scene to do. That is actually hilarious. That is really funny. There's, you do one more sec. Bro, but yes, that's fair. That's a good gag. Apparently Windowy won, and also, by the way, the contestants overall voted in favor of Windowy winning. So yeah, Windowy, it was indeed the winner, and I think that felt pretty clear. I don't know how much Windowy won, which would have been interesting to know. However, we don't get that knowledge. We don't get that knowledge from here. There's an interesting ad in the middle. Again, it could be a place of that. That effect where it's when I don't remember what it's called, when you want to create a correlation, you're gonna find one even if it's not really actually there. Yeah. However, I'm just gonna say this ad, in a little bit of a way, you can see with how much the text moves and is that font and appears when the text gets said, and there's those stick figures with kind of those rounded heads, right? Gonna be for real out here. This kind of reminds me of Bill Wurst in a way, which I think kind of acts as, a little bit of the demo for the stuff Diamondcup did a couple years ago, and all that stuff. You can see that inspiration kind of there as well. I mean, I don't know if that's actually a thing. I could just be chatting a whole load of shit. However, I got that perception. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of felt a little bit like Bill Wurstian mixed in with a yellow face ad, Of course, Bill Wurst is musical, but it's mixed in with it. It looks like if an ad was animated Bill Wurst, it's kind of okay, we got something, right? Of course, again, it's super low down because it's kind of it's supposed to be meme bad. However, I think that you can see the core, the skeleton of it. I think it is there. But yes, that is Object Filler, the first season, which is there. I mean, I think that this season does mainly act as a solid joke show that came in at a very good time. It comes in at a time where people weren't really doing that. The OSC wasn't really too much of a thing because, it was a thing, but it kind of stilled itself out, Again, that era was rough, that era was bad, in terms of, what things, how many things there actually were to look forward to, right? That era was rough, which means that, it ends up that kind of this show gets endorsement by being at a solid time, as well. and introducing a couple of basic this is something that joke shows could do that is funny, that eventually others go on to replicate and morph into their own ideas. Okay, now how do we do object filler again? How does this go? I don't know what this is. We're gonna have to find out. OFA, starting with OFA 1A, but I'm not done yet. The freaking length of these videos goes massively up. Let's watch it. Alright, that is OFA 1A, and yeah, I mean, you can really see just how much, like, of a product of its time it is when you look at just how, like, this is definitely BFB. Just kind of like, you can tell that it's doing the same thing. It's like, yo, they did that, I want to do that. Because like there was kind of like there was like an immediate wave, right? Where like when BFB was started, because the thing about BFB is that BFB sort of a kind of lowered the animation standard a little bit, right? Which means that it became a bit more approachable as a concept, right? To make the show, because if you imagine, like, at the end of the day, of early episode of BFB, they're very crudely drawn, and that's on purpose, right? Like, especially something like 4 and stuff like they're supposed to not be perfectly refined for the sake of additional speed, right? They eventually become more refined, and that's the problem. However, like, they start off at a very baseline level, right? However, that kind of inspires that, yo, this is cool and it's completely different. I want to make something cool that's completely different, right? Because, like, a lot of people did that with original BFDI, right? Like that first wave of object shows from around the time span, a lot of which, at the end of the day, those original set of object shows are still some of the most popular, because, like, the thing about that era is that, BFDI was the only thing, which means that when people search, oh, what could it be? There were these other competition shows, so that I feel like in a way, other object shows got accessed more frequently then, and sometimes even now. But yeah, I feel like that immediate post BFB did cause quite a lot of people to attempt it. However, in the same way, however, that BFB had its own wave of problems, and ended up finishing, but after ages and an entire cut down of the cast by 40%, no, by like 60%. This did, like, a lot of the shows around it end up having the same fate of, like, okay, cool, however, in the same way that you pick up all of the cool stuff from a BFB style, you also pick up all of the negatives, right, which is that there's a lot of cast. So this is interesting. It has ourselves nearly every recommended character from Object Filler. However, the thing about the recommended characters from Object Filler is that they only really appear for like 0.1 seconds each, which means that I don't know who they were, and I didn't care enough to remember who they were. Which means that in this situation, I don't actually like. There might as well just be a cast of new characters, right? I didn't really like. It doesn't really need to be like. I'm sure these files showed up, but it doesn't need to be there. But yes, this includes every character that is associated with Object Filler, in the same way that BFB introduces every character associated with BFDI in general, and then I guess a couple of new guns. But yeah, we end up having some fellas. They all have nearly new they all have new assets, like every single one. It's very solidly drawn, I would say. I mean, it has it sets the quality relatively solidly. When a character design allows itself for a little bit of like some creative stuff, some nice situations, they do take it. Right, like, especially with, I don't know, the Happy Meal or the chicken nugget, right, like that kind of type of thing. Who's like those fellas, when a character design allowed it. Yes, a lot of character designs, however, are extremely goofy, like the Kids Bop album. So for those, there's not really too much that you can do. But yeah, a couple of characters, they definitely speak in different mannerisms, obviously. But like, yeah, they end up having somebody like Catchup go like, they speak kind of in singing. How do they speak? They're just RCs, like, they're just RCs, and I will win. Now you sound like a freaking 2000s rapper. Yeah, I'm Mr. Catchup67, but like, yeah. I'm not going to introduce them one by one because I do not have enough time to do that, and the show doesn't do that either. But we end up having a couple of plot lines, like how Window is apparently super open to everybody, right? So they kind of go chill out. You notice that they're doing the kind of interesting thing how they make their respective equivalents. Kids Bop 7 is super negative, and Kids Bop 7.4 or 20 is super sociable, right? And same thing goes with how Window is super sociable. However, Window 2.0 is super like negative. Like that makes for an interesting duo. But yeah, apparently there's also grave, with the grave pie for like the grave for the pie. I don't remember what pie it was, but yeah, they're like, yo, I don't want to talk to Window. What if Window doesn't like me? But yeah, unfortunately they do like him. Then we have ABC logo. Remember, Window and ABC logo were supposed to be enemies. However, apparently what's going on is actually that was evil ABC logo, because we need to invent some contrived dumb reason so for that plot line to not exist. But yeah, it's not very excused. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, we have a couple of fellas show off their abilities, like a grenade that can explode. The unregistered Hypercan 2 logo can just insert itself at the top corner of every screen, and it freaks out everybody who's there, because they kind of, in the end of the day, they kind of realize it's kind of meta, right? As soon as they realize the meta commentary is like, yo, what's up? But yeah, there's A-Bod, you exist. Yeah, there's just so many people. And eventually Mr. Sketch, which ends up coming in and going like, yo, we should host a competition if the other one was so great. And some of them tell us, mainly Drummy, end up going like, yo, I don't want to do that. Right? And a couple of people end up not wanting to do that, but nearly everybody else immediately sort of joins along for the competition. There's this logo fellas, by the way, are building a logo club. They're building like some logos for like the ABC logo. I mean, they do get an evil ABC logo, but yeah, the kind of profile picture / logo club. That's a club. They're probably gonna form their own team, so I guess you gotta keep that in mind. But eventually, for now, what they end up debating on is that actually, after everybody eventually joins, because Jeremy, like everybody joins except Jeremy, but Jeremy realizes that they're going to be alone, so then they're going to, fine, I'll join. But yes, we end up debating who the host should be, and various people come up with various reasons. Like, yo, we should call Cool Glasses again. I'm like, no, don't do that. That, yo, I was the winner, I should join. And, yo, don't do that. Yo, I should do it because I won it. And no, don't do that. So we end up having, okay, let's do a challenge for it. No, don't do that. I don't want to do that. That's too long. That's not make like an episode or something. So then we end up having the voting. Like we end up having a voting card for it instead. You can vote who you think should be the host, which is pretty cool. We end up having a proper image. I don't remember if this card is taken from IDFB or if it's taken from BFB. I think it was taken from IDFB, right? This is like an IDFB1 voting card. It had like everybody in there, like who do you want to save from the LOL, right? And then eventually the answer turned out to be nobody. Who's gonna win? That's a great question. I think Windowy would make the most sense. But like I don't know who we're voting for. Like it's been a while. We could vote 8-Ball, we could vote Hazel Quick. Like I don't know. I have no idea. We're going to have to find out, to be honest. But, yeah, we're going to have to find out in OFA 1B. OFA 1B is one of the big ones. 1.2 million views on this episode. It's a lot of views. It's a big number of views. But this is technically, the magnum opus. The other videos, they really don't get very close to this view count. So, okay then. OFA 1B is titled Babies Running Even Faster. Go. Alright, that is OFA 1B, one of the big episodes. So that is an interesting episode for sure. It kind of starts off the little question of like, yo, alright, 1.2 million views. How did that happen? Well, I almost remember. Okay, so I was around. This definitely was like a show that I don't think I ever watched it, but I was very much so aware of it back in my original time in the OSC. Because basically, alright, quick backstory on me. So I was in the art show community around late 2018 to kind of early 2020-ish, right? I was like that 2019. I was there. I was doing. I was doing stuff. Not publicly directly, but I was like in around chats, camps and stuff. So I was doing stuff around then, which means that I actually remember it because, like, I'm gonna be absolutely for real. When the OFA intro popped in, like just a random ass memory, I was like, whoa. This thing, because I actually did remember the OFA intro from the time, right? And I was like, damn, I don't remember the OFA the episode because I don't think I watched it, or at least I don't remember having watched it. In the same way that I barely remember watching something like II season 1, but I definitely did, right? It's kind of one of those things like, whoa, it's like crazy. But yeah, about the actual episode itself, we started wondering, who would be the host? Wouldn't it be crazy this person was the host, right? They kind of have this discussion about it. I think that these are some of the most interesting questions that like, as far as voting goes, it's probably one of the most interesting. I think one of my favorite voting to BFTA is absolutely the who should host, and then there's just like a freaking open box. Like, it was crazy. Like, literally anybody can technically host. Like, the fact that everybody's an option is scary. Because, like, you never know what's gonna happen. Like, you just do not know. But it's just it's crazy. But it ends up that we have the host be Mr. Sketchmarker after some time. But yeah, we end up having Mr. Sketchmarker calls over Lighthouse. Lighthouse ends up being sort of a de facto. They are contestant, but they also end up sort of being a de facto co-host, helping out technologically and logistically with the situations from from other stuff. Yeah, so yeah, Lighthouse sets up the logistics. Mr. Sketchmarker ends up hosting. But yeah, Ethan from ROI or Artist Sanity ends up being the second place with 38 votes. But yeah, Mr. Sketchmarker, was very clearly the leading, kind of the most hosty figure in the actual series. Makes sense for sure. So yeah, they end up indeed being the fella who hosts, and I do think they make a good host. First of all, they have a good voice, which is just being fully honest. I mean, the voice that's given to them is very solid, and better than the fella who doesn't move. So yeah, they dodges the bullet there. Gonna be for real. We dodged the major one here, but yeah, we have the OFA intro. I mean, like, how do I describe the OFA intro? It's an intro for sure. It's like, it's very much so doing a BFB as OFA just is in general. However, it's pretty solid. You can tell from kind of the music as well. The music is kind of, it gives off kind of trying, to have its own little unique twist on it. But yeah, we end up having just kind of general chatter, like, we're still learning about characters as we move along, right? Which it's interesting. So, like, you'll see this kind of be a thing, right? Where it's like, you'll notice a show like BFB, or a show like this is not actually going to introduce you every character immediately. Like, it's not going to give you screen time to everybody. It's kind of going to give them as time goes along, which is something that has actually kind of changed with time. You'll notice, right? Like, when a large cast object show starts now, you'll notice they are way more, like, pinpointed, focused on having how do you say this? On having everybody get that scene early. I think definitely from like for example, we saw it in Moss, we saw it with Animatic Battle, right? We saw it with the freaking the other show, LBS. No, sorry, not LBS, UBS. No, WBS. Season 2. Yeah, like, they end up focusing on, like, have a scene for everybody and then start. However, that makes the giant episode 1s, right? However, these shows end up neglecting it. Here's the deal. BFB is capable of neglecting more screen time because it's characters that we already know majority of them, right? This show, neglects it, and that does mean that we still are unsure about what I'm still, not super convinced about what a lot of people. But by combining the last episode with this episode, we're starting to learn. But while we're still learning, we're still progressing at a relative pace, right? Like this is a big episode because it has to do a bonus Omega voting and set everything up and do team forming. But theoretically, all future episode of OFA should be pretty chill, right? Like so, it's like it sets itself up pretty decently. But yeah, the fellas make their teams. We have the first team that the gets formed is Team V Icons, being the team of the logo profile picture club that gets made, featuring FCF logo, the Diamondcup67 logo, the the hazel, what do you call it, hazel cricket. Color Penguin logo, we have the profile picture changing logo, and then Evo ABC logo, and then that one green skull mask that had the gigantic name. So those are the icons. What I think of this team ends up being pretty organized. There's not too much chaos going on this team, so I feel like they should be able to get things done. I mean, as far as I'm aware, yeah, like there's Evo ABC logo, but the thing about Evo ABC logo is that they're not evil in the sense of like they're not here to cause massive chaos, so it should be relatively chill. To not disrupt the team if they're doing okay. So yeah, they end up being pretty solid. Okay, who's next? Who's the second team that ends up getting sorted out? Chicken Nugget gets their voice back. The Pie ABC logo's Pie Gravestone still doesn't want to talk to Windowy because that's a thing that's getting set up. Then we have Germany be like, no, let the people come to us to be on a team. Unregistered Hypercam. Unregistered Hypercam's fire. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, a flying contestant with a bit of attitude, gotta love them. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. They're great. So, yeah. Okay, no, actually, what is the next team to register? Okay, let's check. We have okay, yeah, the team totally rad, because they're totally rad. Yeah, they're the team that Hedge came in and was like, yo, these fellas, you got, and then they had to walk back to get them. So this team is the Hedgerow, the Nutshack, the 8-ball, the Bowtie, the kind of, what are you? You're like a marker. You're like a match if it was a marker. And a guy, and then like the ski goggles. Okay, this team I think is looking pretty sociable. I think there's a lot of conversations are going to happen around this team. I think that they're very much so down to chat. Are they going to be down to do physical activity? I don't know, but they got a guy in there, so, and the guy seems to get along pretty well. So, yeah, I think this team is also pretty well positioned, pretty well employed for good things. So, yeah. Then the next team is titled Watch and Learn. So this is the Lighthouse's team. So it's Lighthouse, the pizza, the grenade, the plate, the camp, the camping site, the blue iPhone charger box, and then the rainbow. And then the star. Yeah, rainbow star. Okay, this team is a little random. There's going to be some, I don't know, I'm not too big on this team. There's like kind of a lot of disagreements. Like some characters like Camp, I feel like are going to kind of start like cause ruckus. I think Plate is a little bit of a protester, Grenade is a little bit of a protester, and also causes chaos. Pizza is a little bit of a protester, right? It's not looking too good. They do have some physical ability, right? They do have some smart abilities as well. I think both Lighthouse and Rainbow Star make a solid duo between them, right? Kind of physical ability and the kind of minds, like those two. So they have the minds and the strengths. They just might be a team that gets broken apart. However, if they can, I don't know how good Lighthouse's leadership capabilities are, but if they're solid, then I'm a believer. Okay, I'm a believer in this team. However, this team might struggle. It could be a team that loses that early challenges, but then kind of carburates. As a couple of the problems get eliminated. I feel like that could be pretty solid. Okay. The next person that gets a name ends up being Fresh. Yes, Team Fresh. After they agree that they should be an all-representative team name. How is it an all-representative team name? Nobody knows. But yes, we end up having this team have ABC logo, Windowy, me. Do end up having the the other trio fellas that just hang around, they kind of one color fellas, which is like a blueberry, a freaking cube, purple block, I don't know, like the sauce jar, and then Kids Bop 7. So, I mean, this team is okay, I feel like this team would be pretty good. Because, I don't know, Windowy's pretty good. Like, Windowy wins, but, like, the kind of personality that Windowy employs, it's kind of Leafy-esque, but you might wonder, well, isn't Leafy terrible? Yeah, but Leafy is, like, exaggerated. I feel like Windowy's not that exaggerated. They can form enemies, so I think that Windowy should be capable of being solid at listening, solid at doing things. I feel like that trio should be capable of shutting down bad ideas. This seems alright. This seems okay. Yeah, this seems okay. I can see this team doing pretty solidly in challenges. And then we have the next team, they're called the Diet Doomers, because they're all stuff that we wouldn't want to eat, apparently. So this team ends up having the Happy Meal, the chicken nuggets, the rug, the milk thing. No, yes. Are you milk? I think you are milk. The freaking the other one with the long name is just a puddle. They end up having the other thing that I don't know what it is, and then the gravestone, and then the gravestone and gravestone's friend. Okay, this team, it's looking like a kind of I don't care team. Give me for real. Like, it's looking like a team that's gonna be too preoccupied doing nothing, you know. Like, Rug doesn't seem to want to do challenges that much. Happy Meal and Chicken Nuggets kind of seem to be super nonchalant in terms of not caring. The other fellas are probably going to be distracted with other people, you know, like Windowy. So I'm not too big on this team. They could prove me wrong, but I'm not too big on this team. Then we end up having the next contestants, because, of course, it's 40. Basically, one team ends up having a bag of grass because they end up having that problem, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So, the team name from the last two teams that end up getting made ends up being Team Nice, okay? Because this is because they're trying to have the coolest team name. So, they're the notoriously indestructible conditioned eliminators, which is Team Nice. So, this team ends up having the freaking the former who forms this name? You're called like you or something. You had like a weird name. Bed, unregistered hypercam. Ethan from OI, Kids Bop 7. Wait, which one is this? Oh no, yeah, this is Kids Bop 7. Yeah, that's right. The other one didn't have Kids Bop 7. Yeah, Kids Bop 7.420. It has Windowy 2. And it has Drummy. Okay, this is the kind of evil team in the sense that they have a lot of the fellas that kind of act out of anger more than they act out of too much logic, right? They do kind of have that drive to win, you know, like they kind of have that strive to win. Like they're gonna compete for sure. They might play dirty, for sure, so they might lose challenges from playing dirty. However, I do think that this team does have the drive, and it has a lot of physicality. If it's a physical challenge, it should be good. But they're also, you know, again, I feel like they could sort themselves out with a mental challenge as well. This seems okay, I think, on the grand scheme of it. And then finally there's the Sod Squad, which is the garbage, the bag of grass that the garbage gives. There's like a piece of dirt, Kids Bop 8, the full cast image of a show that I don't remember the name of, flag, I'm just gonna call you Flaggy, okay, object cringe moment, and then the wooden spoon. This team is kind of, how do I say this? This team gives me vibes of like this, because I always say this is a power friendship team. I feel like this is probably the power friendship team, you know, like nobody is actually has any clue what the fuck's going on this team. Nobody. They're like objectively probably the worst team. However, they can probably just YOLO and survive by just kind of YOLOing a bunch of challenges, you know, like shout out to the power of friendship. But yes, we end up having ourselves the challenge that gets somehow set up, a relay race that gets set up very well by Lighthouse. Lighthouse is good at setting shit up. But yeah, so we end up having the relay race, and we end up having it. What do I think of this relay race as a challenge? I think it's pretty good. I would have probably just had I don't know, I would have realistically not minded if, like, the UI was always there. I always think that for these challenges, where, like, teams can be kind of race-dependent challenges, I enjoy having an ever-present UI. Okay, that might be just me, but I enjoy having it as an ever-present UI. If the status of everybody, which is at the bottom, I would find that quite helpful. You know, um, but in general, I think it's an entertaining challenge. I think it shows off the personalities and how much they're willing to run. It shows off their capabilities as well. We're having some cool montage. We're getting to see a lot of the landscape and all of the work done there. Animationally speaking, this show is rather it's rather good. I feel like this is pretty solid. It ends up being very clean animationally speaking. It ends up having some solid background. Like, it's very solid. I would argue that it looks cleaner than BFB does, to be honest. And it doesn't play around. It also does camera angles. It does some smoother sections, right? It does some solid stuff. But like, in general, it's definitely one of those Object Show episodes that I think for the time it definitely stood out. Cause I remember, man, this thing stood out, man. Like, this back in 2019 was like a talking point, like it was a detail. But yeah, it did stood out as truly one of the good episodes of the time. It impressed when there weren't as many shows around. So yeah, the final two ends up being on a stalemate because Ethan from OI doesn't move. You might be wondering, if Ethan from OI doesn't move, how the hell did they even get to the starting line? The answer is, I don't know, and we're just gonna pretend like that makes sense because that's what shows do with immobile characters. They're like, oh no, they won't move, and it's like, how did you get there in the first place? Like, they clearly don't have special powers to move to teleport you, apparently, so, that's like a thing. But yeah, it turns out that because of the last second throw of the bag of grass that trash can does, right at the end, it just kind of be like, you can't move, so I guess we'll get you further along. They end up winning over Ethan because nobody managed to get Ethan through. So that means that Team Nice ends up being up for elimination. I do like the presence of the leaderboard of like the leaderboard at some point, whenever we're at least on the main screen. I think that's rather nice. And yeah, so we end up having a Team Nice be up for eliminations. That's Bed Drummy, Ethan from OI Fan, Kids Bop 7, Unregistered Hypercam 2, and Windowy 2.0. Who should get eliminated? I mean, it's definitely Ethan, like, just objectively speaking. They're a character that's just kind of, they're A, not original to the show. They are B, not, the gag is just that they don't move. Like, haha, isn't it funny how this character isn't really a character? And then they're also just kind of, I don't know, they made them lose the challenge, right? The reason why they lost the challenge is because of Ethan, otherwise they would have been good. So I think that is definitely the detail. Will Ethan get eliminated? I don't know. They could. I mean, the thing about this, again, this episode was a big deal. I feel like the answer is yes. I'm gonna say that Ethan from OI gets eliminated. The only reason why I'm hesitating is because Ethan from OI got a lot of positive votes to be the host. However, I don't know. I feel like that's trolling. I'm gonna say that Ethan from OI got eliminated here. But overall, yeah, that is OFA 1B. Absolutely, just it was a very solid episode. I mean, what, 2 people animated this? Yeah, it definitely stood out. It stood out. It was a surprising amount of quality for a time where, like, it just was rare to see it. It was just rare to see it. So it definitely, I think, sits itself deservedly, I would say, on the throne of fellow 1 million viewed videos. I think that, like, this was a big deal back when we were, like, back when I was around. I remember this quite well. I think that it was a big deal for a reason. It had cool stuff, it had a nice memorable intro. It had some fun, memorable characters. It was well animated. It actually kind of gave you hope that, like, it could get itself done. Because I mean, like, yo, look, we got this big 20-minute episode done by 2 people. Imagine if they got, like, I don't know, like a couple more crew members. These episodes could actually come out. We could actually have a show that get cancelled in 2 episodes. Because yes, it got cancelled in 4 instead. Yay! But it's great stuff. And of course, you end up also having kind of that little bit of like, BFDI in there, right? Like Satomi, voice acting their own character. You end up having Ping Pong Cup Shots. That was kind of a TWOW community member, if you know about those. So yeah, that was like a detail. So episode 2 of OFA released 6 years ago. What is its name? It just had a cool, but it's like a cool emoji. It's the cool emoji. Okay, alright then. It's time for OFA 2 cool emoji. Yo, hold up again. I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out that this has a wiki. Yo, that's crazy. That is so 2019. Wikis, fandom wikis, bro. I feel like the BFDI has never really evolved from fandom like so many other wikis have. So many wikis evolved from like fandoms and stuff, but like they really did it, man. Like they kind of like there isn't a thing. I feel like they should make at least a BFDI wiki should probably move. The BFDI wiki is very thorough. Is the BFDI wiki? Hold on. Now I'm sorry. BFDI wiki. Is this? No, it's just on fandom. I don't know why it's like they should definitely migrate. Yo, BFDI wiki, what the fuck you doing? Come on. Like it still says BFDI wiki, new episode BFDI 1. No, come on, lock in. Lock in. Oh my god, whatever. Okay. All right. Now that I've ranted, OFA 2 cool emoji. Alright, that is OFA 2 cool. So, yeah, this episode is another episode that reminds me of BFB a lot, because then one of the questions, right, that you might, bring up nowadays, right, when chatting about BFB is, okay, well, it was fast, it was having an episode for like 2 weeks. It eventually slowed itself down to a snail, but like at its most full, it managed to keep it together. So what did it do? Well, what it did was it did a very good job at doing what this episode does also relatively well. It writes teams as a whole, right? So that way, BFB, with its 64 people, if you have all of them do stuff in every episode's gonna be like 4 billion hours long. So what do? You have to you need to think out your challenge. You need your challenge to be smart, right? So that way, if your challenge is smart, that way you can make a challenge where people can be safe immediately, right? So, for example, that one team has a pencil sharpener. They sharpen the pencil, and they are safe, which means that they now don't need to appear for the rest of the episode. They still do once or twice for the sake of another team. However, they are now out of the equation. So, for example, you see that drops down our cast number from 49 to 42 characters that are left. Other than like 3 teams are safe, and then by like the last 4 minutes, right? Like there's only like 3 teams remaining, and there you only have like 14 people that you might have to deal with. Like it's really not too bad, and you can do it pretty quickly, right? So yeah, if you're making a large cast object show, yeah, the absolute recommendation do this for your initial batch of episodes. You need to do something where a team can be immediately safe, because if you had that type of challenge where everybody is always in contention until the very end, it ends up A, being a mess, B, taking a really long time, and just overall being a lot of stuff, right? But this episode ends up at under 10 minutes by having so much to think about because of that, right? I think it's pretty solid. The challenge is also, of course, a little silly, like you have to sharpen a pencil, like what? But yeah, we end up having some fellas yet again, the freaking dirt puddle and Flaggy, and they're going and worshiping the bag of grass. Well, like, you see, they did it, and they won us the challenge at the end of the day, which is fair. Why can characters based on flags never be smart? Why do they only have? Well, they're like sentenced to have 2 brain cells, but we end up having Team Nice's elimination where, holy fuck, the eliminated contestant with 694 votes is Ethan from OY. I mean, I was expecting Ethan to get eliminated, but holy, that is a big number. Out of 800, you got 700, bro. Like, that's crazy. Nah, bro. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, fully expected that to happen. But yes, they end up dipping, and they can sit in the bleachers, which means that we end up having our challenge be again to sharpen pencils. The team sharpen pencils in various ways. It so happens that, of course, the team that gets the idea from right, which is a team of the icons, ends up already having a sharpening, so they sharpen their pencil, and then what they proceed to do is kind of have a bunch of other teams kind of look for them and be like, yo, we could use your sharpener, and they kind of debate whether or not to give it or not. They give it to one team, don't give it to another team, right? It's a very solid way to make alliances, but they don't really think that. They're just like, no, don't give it. And I mean, like, it's one of those things like, you're safe. So like, whether your sharpener is there or not, it doesn't, like, like whether the other teams are using it or not, it doesn't matter that much, right? Like, but yeah, it doesn't end up working. We end up having some fellas. So the team, okay, yeah, what team ends up screwing up this challenge? It ends up being this team, right? Yeah, it ends up being the team of the foods. What are they called? Food haters? No. You recall like you had a bad diet doomers. Yes, they had like some cool name. So the Diet Doomers end up flopping this challenge by simply not thinking it through enough. They start thinking, yo, because other teams are like, okay, yeah, we could go all the way and try to find a sharpener or whatever, but it's like, we can also just do it with the tools that we have here. So we have the bleachers, which are sharp, right? You can sharpen using those. You can try to, get a sharpener from somebody. You can maybe use a sharpener with somebody else. There's a couple of like plot conveniency things, like, oh, the blue iPhone charger box just so happens when you put it in the mouth, it works as a sharpener. What? How was that ever a thing? I don't know, but it is now. But it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, it's a little bullshit because like there's no way that would have ever been a thing. But at the same time, it's like, yo, it's the first batch of episodes. We got to see this character's capabilities. There is no such thing as bullshit. If this character can do that, then they can do that. It is part of their ability raster in a way. So yeah. We end up having that the Diet Doomers and it's going up by just thinking, oh, yo, let's go fetch some rocks all the way in the ravine, and then yeah, they kind of screw up. But you see, in a way, I believe that like what I said, that this team would struggle. I think it like applies to this. You know why I think it applies to this? I think it applies to this because like it ends up that like they don't think enough. Right? They don't care enough to think. They just hear an idea, go like, okay, that could work, let's go do it. Right? Like, they don't try to imagine the best plan, they just try to imagine a plan. So then they end up losing because of that. Which is kind of the most unfortunate. So, yeah, that team ends up kind of struggling here. And yeah, thankfully the other fellas, the last team that was also there was the team with the bow tie that was fighting. What were you called? What were you called? I don't fucking remember. Ain't no way I don't remember the team names, bro. You were called Rad, whatever. Right? You're called like Radical Rad. No. Whatever. Yes, they end up because they were trying to just get to use the sharpener from the freaking fella. However, they don't because they get rejected because the entire team was just looking angrily at FCF's logo, and then they're like, no. But as soon as like they get at that FCF logo, it's like away. Bowtie can ask it, and then they end up actually getting it, which is pretty cool. And yeah, they end up sharpening the pencil. And they end up being safe. So that is pretty epic. Who do I think gets eliminated? It's like the first elimination with a settable like reasons for characters to get eliminated other than just one. I think the biggest contender for the elimination here is probably. Okay, so hold on, let's clock in. The character that does the least is probably the Rug fella, the Puplux boost label. They really don't do anything. And Grave in this episode really doesn't do anything. Like, Grave and the other fella really don't do much. Happy Meal is technically the reason that they lose, because they commit to a bad plan, because Happy Meal agrees to it. Man, great for ABC logos. Pie didn't do anything in this episode. Oh god, they might get out because, but they want it. But I don't know because there was the windowy thing. But will they actually keep track of it? I don't know who gets out here. I feel like it's not Happy Meal. I feel like it's not Happy Meal. I feel like it's not Happy Meal. It could be great for ABC Logos Pie's friend if we imagine that, oh, it's funny how their name is super long. And that annoys me. I'm gonna say the Poopucks boost label. I could be wrong. There's no basis for that. No basis. Literally no logic behind it. I've just got a feeling. Okay, I've just got a feeling. Poopucks boost label didn't do much, and I just feel like they're less interesting than the other people. But I might be completely wrong. There's a third animator now. Ooh. And yeah. Okay. I think that with that we can. Ooh. No. We can introduce the fourth. No. I mean, it's the fourth video, but it's the third episode of Object Filler again, or OFA. We go over the 10-minute marks. Monetization, at the times. You end up having the episode titled "Can You Draw Me?" I can't, but let's see if I don't know FCF can. Here we go. Go. Sorry, another pop in last second. I forgot to actually check the date between these episodes because I think that's like an important thing to check before actually showing it off. OFA 3 apparently released on September 7th. Wow. That is a while. Okay, I mean from March to September. Yeah, I mean that's like majority of the year. Okay, that's interesting. All right. Okay. So keep that in mind. Did take quite a bit longer because OFA 2 took like not that long, to like 2 to 3, to like 2 months. OFA 3 to like 5. Okay, so keep that majorly in mind. All right. Okay. Time for the episode. Can you draw me? For real now this time. I keep introducing stuff too early. Like I'm sorry. All right, let's go. Alright, that is episode 3 of OFA. So we have ourselves, an episode. I'm curious, how many animators run this? Was it still 3? It was still 3. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, it's expected at a certain point, like, it's gonna come down, because unfortunately, I mean, like, one of the details that I think kind of, starts hitting, at these types of shows is that it's like, I think that there's this type of mentality, right, that comes in when you have shows like this, and it's like, yo, this episode, they could definitely make it. They can make it in a couple of months. They made a couple episodes in a couple of months, right? And it's like, it's all cool, like the possibility of an episode, it's not a problem, right? For them. So sure, they could make this. Could they make it 50 times without getting burnt out, demotivated, the landscape changing, their lives changing, or anything? Yeah, I don't know about that. Like, it's kind of one of those, like, a production crew is so, like, set to the future, where it's like, yo, are we really expecting this entire production crew to stick around for 50 episodes? It's just impossible to really imagine it, right? Which is why that, like, even though, like, these episodes are like, oh yeah, I wonder why it struggled, but, like, yeah, unfortunately it's just that the individual episode and the production of an individual episode is never a problem. If it takes like 3 to 5 months, that's perfectly suitable. However, it's just, wow, doing that so many times, committing to it it's where the problems arise. So the challenge for this episode ends up being a drawing challenge, but first we end up having Tent get pranked themselves. So they seem to be like, whoa, you can do a prank other than just sitting on the bed? Whoa, that's crazy. So they might have innovative new ideas. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, we have some other fellas. Milk apparently getting along with their team, even though they struggle quite a bit. We end up having ourselves the elimination now ceremony. You can tell, you gotta point it out that there are, like, the amount of visual gags that are showing up. There definitely are showing up. Like the gag of like Milk shuffling over. Like, this is a relatively high level set of animation. I'm still gonna absolutely say, it's good. It is good. And we end up having ourselves the elimination with 1,574 votes. Way more. You know, that's actually way more than episode 1 than episode 2 had, even though 1B was the more popular video. Why? I think the presumption is that actually, like, for, of course, like, OFA 1B was a big deal. However, like, you know, people won't necessarily find a video in 48 hours. Like, it kind of takes time, right? For the people to immediately for like a big video to grow. Like, it'll take a couple of days. As like, cause word of mouth works fast, but it doesn't work like that fast, right? So yeah, like the 1B, like I think the voting time for 1B was like a week, and it would have been a lot. However, this ends up kind of like as the residue of that. But yeah, so another 574 votes, and the eliminated contestant ends up being Pupux with 631. I was correct. I have no idea how. I had literally no basis for my prediction. They just felt like the least interesting, and I guess enough people randomly agreed. But yeah, let's go. That I'm shook by that quite a bit. That I got that correct. I guess you know, me and 2019 voting patterns, they go together hand in hand. But yeah, they will be helping out for the challenge, which is nice. Their punishments, they have to gather everyone around the bleachers. I like how this is the one part. To be fair, I kind of enjoy how this is the one part of the show that doesn't make any sense. Like, they're just randomly are there now. Just proper random. But yes, the third challenge ends up being to do an art competition. Have 50 minutes to draw a randomly selected contestant from each team. So, okay, what does each team draw? All right. So let's go order by order. Fresh. This team decides to draw blueberry or berry, I think they're just called. Actually, I keep calling them blueberry because blueberry is like in every show. Like, the two most common items in object shows are 8-ball and blueberry. But yes, like, they end up having a global idea that they end up making, that they simply grab a bunch of sheets of paper and grab a bunch of pencils. Because instead of having one person designated to draw and be like, no, I'm the best artist, just have everybody make a drawing, and that way they can just pick the best one. It is by far a great idea. It's a great idea. If they're allowed to, which FTL logo allows them to do at the end of the day, they end up working. And you see, they end up finding an artist that wouldn't have originally shown up, being like, oh, I'm not that good, you know, I'm sorry for like these problems, you know, which was like blueberry kombucha. They weren't that, you know, confident that they were gonna that they were that good when they actually were excellent. And to be fair, by the way, the other drawing, like the secondary drawing, the one that was super stylized, that one absolutely was also an excellent drawing. It was like proper, you know, like, I wouldn't know a rating to give it, but it would probably still top the ratings. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so that team just blew it out of the water with their strategy that works. Totally rad. So totally rad's team ended up having to draw Guy, by far the most complicated drawing that a team has to do. It gets delved into Bowtie. Bowtie does it. It doesn't end up amazing. The main problem with it is that Bowtie seems to have no concept of coloring at all. Colors everything out of lines, because I feel like the actual shape of the body is okay, but like the actual lines from like the colors and stuff are terrible. It's not good. It's like I would do worse, but like, it's not great. Not a great drawing of Guy. And they eventually end up UFE. Then we end up having Die Doomers. So Die Doomers have to draw Happy Meal. I don't remember who they entrust to draw Happy Meal, but either way, they do a pretty okay job of drawing Happy Meal. I mean, it's a chill challenge for them, so I don't think that this team would struggle in a challenge like that. So they end up just kind of drawing Happy Meal. Happy Meal is a super immobile character in the sense that they don't just move that much. So you can make a relatively accurate portrayal, even if it's not going to be that interesting. So yeah, the Sod Squad has to draw a bag of grass. They decided the best idea is just to have everybody draw together. However, they just kind of end up scribbling all around random stuff, and the bag of grass kind of ends up hiding itself in the middle. So it ends up being a little bit of an overly messy drawing. However, I mean, the background is in there. Nice. Ends up drawing the freaking drummy. We end up kind of trolling drummy a little bit by drawing them as part of a drum set, which is fun. It's a pretty cool drawing. However, yeah, it ends up being okay. You know, it ends up being actually. They don't end up being okay. That's pretty good. Yet again, I don't remember who submitted this. Then we end up also having the FCF logo. This gets drawn by Hazel, who ends up drawing an overall pretty solid FCF logo. I mean, FCF logo is kind of one of those more complicated characters to draw, especially with how they have the text on the screen. So it ends up as a pretty solid, mildly simplistic variant of it. I would say that, apparently the problem is that they had to draw on grass, which kind of gave them the major issue. And then we had Watch and Learn. So Watch and Learn had a relatively okay drawing of pizza. Apparently missed a little bit. However, they gave it to Rainbow Star at the last second because they had to go do something else. So while they were giving it to the fella, right, while they were giving it to Rainbow Star, the problem with that drawing that ends up getting delivered is that they actually have like an exaggerated, is that they end up glittering all over it, kind of. Maybe not. I don't know if they glitter it on accident, but they definitely glitter it. Okay, they glitter it a lot, because why? Hold on. They were like chasing tent. Okay. Oh yeah, they were chasing tent. I don't know why they were. Why were they chasing tent? Yo, I don't know. I feel like Tent's about to pull a prank. This guy's suspicious. I don't know. But yeah, somehow, just by kind of the niceness of sketch marker, they end up getting somehow, despite only being glitter, being safe, and the bad drawing of guy and the surviving. I guess no drawing is better than bad drawing, you know. I do like the duo that gets done here with the judge panels of having like a very nice overall sketch marker, you know, very positive, uplifting, and having, you know, the fancy design of the Rugrats or whatever it's called. That kind of ends up being the most scathing reviewer and giving more harsher reviews, right, which I think is pretty solid. I like that duo. And yeah, Totally Rad is up for Elam, so it's Bowtie's fault. Absolutely. It's Bowtie's fault that their drawing was bad. The thing about it is that the pink marker, the teenage girl, is that they were annoying about it. Yes, correct. Yeah, they were like annoying about it, but they were correct. You know, they were like condescending, but they did have a correct opinion. Bushy and Nushak weren't. Bushy and the ski goggles ended up not being brave enough to actually agree, because it's like, you know, majority rules. If majority is like, it's not amazing, then, you know, you start thinking, okay, yo, maybe if that girl called me out, I don't know, but like if this fella called me out, it's a problem. Who gets out here? Okay, it could be Bowtie, but I feel like it wouldn't be Bowtie. Bowtie's at least nice about it and did win them the other challenge. 8-ball. Pop or random. 8-ball. I feel like 8-ball doesn't survive that long in these shows. Either way, let's say 8-ball gets eliminated. I don't know who 2019 people would choose 100%. However, I'm saying 8-ball. I would have probably voted 8-ball because unoriginal character. Now, it's very much so a type of person that voted for originality more than anything else. So I think that I would vote out 8-ball. Didn't do much in this challenge. Kind of lame. Kind of meme. Like, we don't need 8-ball. Alright. So that's what I would have voted. And so I'm gonna go with what I would have voted, and therefore what the masses would have voted. Okay, back in the day. I don't know. But we're gonna go along with that. Okay. Yeah. Let me check. Is there any? I always like to check for changes in the actual, like, in the credit screen. I don't. Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like anything's too different. So let's see. We end up having Jumpy just staring at the drawing at the end. Okay, so that's September 2019. OFA 4 released in April 2020 on like April Fools. Well, it actually released on April 2nd. So that's yet again a long production window, like I don't know, 6 to 7 months. So it seems like the average time of OFA increasing is not going good. Okay, well then, let's see how OFA 4 goes. OFA 4 is titled OFA 4, OFA 4, OFA, let's go. Alright, that is OFA 4, also known as OFA 4. So, this episode, I'm gonna be 100% brutally honest with this one. I really didn't feel this one. I'm not gonna lie, I did not feel this episode. I feel like this episode is trying way too hard. Like, I think that, like, not in the terms of any, like, individual interaction, but I think it tries too hard at deviating from the structure. It's like, oh, look at this quirky episode. The elimination was done off screen. Oh my god, the challenge was announced off screen. Oh my god, the teams don't care. You know, it's like, it's not really, it's kind of just, it's trying to act quirky, and it's like, it just ends up feeling kind of weird, you know? Like, there's just a fog between, like, the start of the episode and then eventually the challenge, and then we get to see the votes on a flash on screen super fast, and it's like, I mean, like, the elimination is one of the cool parts, though, you know, and it's like the challenge announcement is literally just useful. Like, the thing about the challenge explanation is that, like, yo, I understand that, yo, you want to be all different and try to, let's not have the challenge explanation on. Let's have it be explained, like, to the guy later, and then the viewers also catch it like that. But then it's kind of one of those things where it's like, but, like, the thing is that is a useful thing. Like, it's not like an optional thing. Like, deviating from it isn't really that entertaining. It's just kind of annoying. Like, if I wasn't paying attention to that specific sentence, because no graphic came on the screen or anything, it was just a sentence, I probably wouldn't realize that it was the challenge to find a baton for ages. Like, it just kind of, it's not amazing. No, not lie. It tries to break up the structure that a regular episode would have to be all different and it kind of fails, I think. So that's my personal opinion. Rainbow Star ends up playing catch. I'm not gonna lie, like, the Hedge calls him out for cheating, or Bushy, whatever. No one to lie, I think we need to stop calling flying characters cheating. I think this is flyist. Okay, I don't know why characters could, like, yo, it's not cheating that you can fly, it's just that you can fly. You know, like, come on, bro. You need to sort this out, especially because you also threw the longest ball in the world. Like, it's not like you weren't catching it otherwise. Like, it was the only way was to fly to it. Come on now. But yeah, the eliminated contestant. What the hell is the eliminated contestant? I think it was 8-Ball. Yes, 8-Ball was the eliminated contestant with like 600 votes. I don't fully remember because it wasn't on the fucking screen for more than half a second. However, yes, 8-Ball did get eliminated. Yeah, I got it correct. Let's go. I think it was a pretty close, but yeah, I mean, apparently when it comes to the eliminations here, I'm the GOAT. I'm the GOAT, bro. But yeah, so I like Bed's interactions being like super goofy voice. I think my mouth is broken. And then we end up having, what else do we have? Like, you see, we're kind of starting, we're like trying to set up things, you know, like we're kind of, this show is starting to be at the moment where it's like, okay, we introduced every character, now we can start some of the beginner arcs, right? So, for example, what is going on in the life? Like, it starts to ask questions, right? Like, what's going on, what's going to happen with Tense Pranks, what's going to happen with, what's in Lighthouse's house, right? Kind of like, will the ABC logo's pie grave start talking to people? Will they find a spot? Like, it starts asking these questions, that eventually can answer. I would still probably wait an episode. I would have given another episode, kind of 1B style, to where the contestants, they're just kind of doing their thing. So that we get 2 episodes where they get to fully just be themselves, doing a challenge, and then eventually we can start arcs. That's why I think that like 5 onwards is when this stuff will start. I think starting a bit early, I'm not gonna lie. However, yeah, it does that. Grenade is like, I wanna break into the house, and then proceeds to be like, there's not a door, it's not open, I guess we can't go in. Yes, that was a great stealth mission there, Grenade. For a moment I thought Grenade was gonna blow up on the house. I'm gonna be absolutely I thought Grenade was gonna blow up the house. I'm gonna be absolutely for real, but no, apparently not. They type 1 2 3 5 in the code and it doesn't work. I'm telling you it's 1 2 3 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. The code's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the gag that they were gonna do, but they probably didn't have time to do. But yeah. What else are they doing? Yes, we end up. Oh yeah, we end up showing off that apparently they have some things. The screen apparently has some games on it, which is fun. However, it actually ends up as a transition into the intro. It's just so fire. Meow, meow, meow. You know. But yes, I still think it's cool. Yeah. Hold on. What's going on? Wait a minute. Oh, so two teams just already found the team. Yeah, you see, it's just weird. Like, if you weren't paying attention to the fucking screen that was there for 2 seconds, you would have been like, oh, yo, these teams, what happened to these teams? Right? Because it's kind of like, okay, but like, you gotta show it. It's not as cool as you think it is. I'm gonna be honest. No, I don't know. I disagree. I think that, like, the fundamentals of an object show challenge episode are there because they're fundamentals, you know? Like, you can play around with how the fundamentals are presented, but you gotta present them. You can't just fucking get rid of it. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. I think I'm kind of I'm a disagreeer with what this episode stands for. Okay, I don't think this episode stands for good things. I think this episode stands for, you know, trying to break a perfectly suitable cycle. You know, it's not good. So yeah. Apparently the red one was gone and the magenta one was gone. Okay, sure. But yeah, we end up having the grenade be like, I don't know, I just don't want to annoy people, so I kind of don't talk to them, you know. So yeah, apparently Chicken Nugget has this spot, you know, the spot with them and Happy Meal. They go and they're like, chill. You know, this has that super chill spot. So apparently they're gonna go try to find the spots for the fella to relax. I mean, I don't know if that works. Okay, I mean, it might. I guess one of those things like it could debatably work, but it might not work because it's like kind of you know, like you gotta get better by talking to people, but like if you're not talking to people and you're just sitting around in the corner, I don't know if that works, right? But like it could help you relax, I guess. Okay, some teams have the bait, the baton. What's going on? Yeah, we end up having the freaking bag of grass obsessed team doing their thing. Like, it's just like, I think that I'm looking at the show, I think probably with a little bit of a modern perspective, right? Where like this type of stuff has been done and done, you know, like especially like you know, where like Box was like that character that was like super, that was like non-existent, but everybody was like, oh yo, this is crazy, right? Like all of that stuff. It's like and then you have now doing that for Bag of Grass, where all the characters for some reason just think Bag of Grass is the goat and they have no logical reasoning at all, right? And it's like yes, we done this before. Like this show, it like wasn't an old trope back when this show did it. You see, like that's kind of the complicated thing. It wasn't an old trope when this show did it. I gotta set myself back in the time frame. It's fine. It's okay. Not overused. And either way, it's still vary around the idea, but at least having like half of them understand. Right? Like Flaggy just comes up with dumbass reasons to why Bag of Grass is the go, and we're trying to it's like, what the fuck? But yes, apparently they decide to split up into 2 groups instead of everybody splitting up because they don't want to get lost. So they decide to split up into 2 groups, and then if you find a baton, you chill. So that's alright. Then we end up having the icons, which end up going, yo, I mean, I already found some batons, but we gotta find a baton. But it's like, yo, hold on, you found 2 batons? Also, first of all, by the way, this Goma hasn't spoken since OFA 1A, I think. I was trying to think, like, yo, when was the last time you spoke? I think it was the one line in OFA 1A. I think this character had like 3-4 episodes of downtime. They were just there and just were not written. I think that's true, right? But yeah, here they're at least shown off, you know, so that we can at least have a perception of their personality, where we didn't really have them. They seem to be kind of obliviously confident, which is interesting. We end up having unregistered hypercamp 2, which has an interesting moment here. They end up being I can't just magically teleport myself to a baton. And it turns out that as they're walking, unregistered hypercamp 2 quickly snatches the baton and teleports them to and teleports it to in front of the other fellas. That way they find a baton and they get their self-confidence boosted. I mean, tactics tactics, ayo, fire, move. Hey, that gets your team self-confidence up. I think it's like, you could say it's lying because they didn't put in enough effort. But like, if you think about it, the fact is that you're rewarding them, right? Because it's like they put in the effort and they got a reward, which means that they will put in the effort next time because they got a reward the previous time, right? So I think it's a good idea for unregistered hypercamp to do that. That way they get their team to do more effort. Then they find a blue baton, they submit it in our safe, and they go search for a green one. They find a green one, alongside the rainbow star. However, so they needed to submit it, the other fellas just needed for bag of grass. So the wooden spoon goes like, yo, how about this? We will submit it for you as long as it can just be in the bag of grass. And they end up doing that, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure. And that means that Fresh ends up being the last team up for Elam. So, I mean the last team, and then they're up for Elam. ABC logo, Barry, Blucha. So what this team was doing, Barry totally features Skip and Blueberry were just looking. I think me was also looking. They were just kind of looking around, but they weren't really finding too much around like the bleacher area. In the meantime, ABC logo, Window, and Kids Bob were looking further away. However, when coming back to go search in a different direction, they got tired. Or at least Kids Bob got tired. Kids Bob 7.420. It's like, yo, let's chill. And then they're like, no, that's not chill. Come on, we can't, we're not safe yet. It's like, no, we're chill. And Winter is like, I mean, I am tired. So they get successfully convinced by Kids Bob 7.420. And ABC logo goes like, fine, then I'll chill. And then they end up losing. So it ends up looking very bad on those three. But you see, this is like, again, it's another fault of the writing of the fucking episode. Because, like, you see, you end up having this type of writing that kind of leaves everything out of the window. Which means that we end up having certain teams just kind of not have screen time, including this one. Also because the challenge is to find something which is entirely luck dependent at the end of the day. Like, by the way, did the icons even submit a baton? Did we even see them do that? Like, it's kind of one of those things like, bruh, like, it's just, where is anything? Can you write an episode properly? We're just cutting out half of the things that are needed to make a coherent episode just for the sake of it. Because I want to make it different. No, you're not making it different. You're making it worse. Because now, out of the contestants for elimination, for the first time, I truly feel like me didn't fucking speak. Barry got one line. Totally featureless Q got one line. Blueberry Kombucha got 0 lines, I think, as well. And then the other fellas are the ones who got lines, and they're negative because they're the ones who didn't fucking do the challenge. I mean, I think that Kids Ball 7.420 is probably getting eliminated, because, like, the thing about it is that Kids Ball 7.420 probably doesn't have too much like recognition because they're so similar to Kids Ball 7, right? And they're also the one that was like, nah, we're gonna win. And they were very dismissive of doing the challenge, and I feel like viewers don't tend to like characters that don't do the challenge. Well, the other ones that don't appear, they don't get screen time, they do at the very least try the challenge. So I think Kids Ball 7.420 is out. In my prediction, I think that's the one that makes the most sense. But hey, I might be wrong, because, like, again, so many of these characters in this team, like, I saw like 3 of them get so little screen time that they might as well not be there. So, like, it's kind of it's annoying. I don't know. This episode was sad. It was try hard. It was try hard, the episode. It didn't need to try as hard as it did to have a different structure, and it kind of failed. Alright, so that was April 2020. OFA 5, which is the last episode of OFA before what I believe it is cancellation, is released like a full... when the fuck was this? Like May 2021. Okay, that's ages later. Well, it's time for the last OFA. At least I believe. It's a Pebble. Alright, so that is OFA 5. It is late tonight, so it's going to be a little bit more of a more chilled out discussion. But hey, it's a chilled out discussion for what it's at the end of the day a chilled out show. Like half of the teams don't give a shit. The hosts aren't exactly very commanding, and the challenges aren't exactly very demanding. So yeah, we end up having ourselves the start where we end up asking for what spot the Grave wants to be. Well, for some reason, Happy Meal and Co. really wants to sit by next to the bleachers, which is interesting. I mean, yes, they do like being around the bleachers, but like, I mean, I don't know what the point of that is. But they eventually, yeah, just have a couple of, chill conversations, and then we have ourselves the elimination. So in the elimination, something interesting happened. Well, first of all, by a decisive margin, 990, Kids Bop 7.420 has been eliminated. I would like to say that this is, I think, definitely a problem with the show. If I've genuinely managed to predict every single elimination of this show correctly, at least for the time that it was around, I'm not sure if I would have predicted the one for this. However, I think that no, I don't know. Would I have predicted? I think I would have, but no, I don't think I would have. No, I don't know. Sorry, but like basically. Because I think I read it down below. I think it's the two name thing. Because I looked at the description, because the description told me to read it. And it talked about the cancellation of OFA, right? But anyways, yeah, I think that this was also a problem with the writing. That it was kind of obvious, right? Like, have a team obviously have a guy who dismisses or does a mistake or is just generally mean, and then they end up getting out, and it's kind of easy to predict it, right? And I managed to predict every single one right, which I think it's unfortunate. However, there is a surprise double elimination. I know, right? Crazy. And it pisses people off, as it usually does, because there's a random chance that it could be a double elimination. Why do we do double eliminations in large cast object shows? You'll notice nearly all of the ones that start around this era, randomly a couple of episodes in, decide to introduce double elims because it's a bad idea to do 50 episodes. So we end up trying to shoehorn in it. Does it work? No, not really. Because like this is a thing that quite a few object shows do. Is they do, it's a surprise double elim, which I mean, it's a surprise, but like I don't think it's a great surprise, because it's like it kind of just pisses people off, right? Like it pisses the contestants off in universe, and it's also kind of annoying to a viewer, because it's like, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. I was satisfied for a moment, and now I'm not satisfied because you lied to me. Like you lie to the viewers, basically, right? By going like. Oh, the person with the most votes gets out, and then it's like, no, and then literally say, oh, you are safe, and then eventually like, nope, and it's like, bro, like, you lied to the viewer, right? Which is upsetting, and it's because it's one of those things where it's like, you can make a random double elimination, like, that's a thing that you can do, because, like, for example, if you imagine, especially in a show like this, right, you end up going, oh, this challenge would be a double elimination, then you see, that forces the teams to lock in. Because now the teams have to lock in, because like the challenge is so much more important now, because like the last challenge is way more important now that they know that two of their members got out rather than before where they didn't, right? So that way they can they write, like, it adds urgency to the characters. That's like, okay, this challenge we cannot fail. It's kind of like, it's too big of a damage for us to lose this challenge, right? So that allows for different types of writing. It allows for the situation to change from episode to episode, and it makes for interesting writing. However, just kind of shoehorning it at random just adds one scene where people are pissed off, and then the characters dip, right? Like, it's kind of just that way. So I'm not a big fan of seeing it done like that. TBH, all right. To be honest, yeah, we end up having just some conversation. Mimi is quite upset at it because, yes, that makes sense. But yeah, we eventually head over to the challenge after the intro. Last time we'll see the OFA intro. Salute to you. And then we end up having ourselves the challenge, which is done at the Creekside. The idea of doing a challenge at the Creekside is excellent, though. I've criticized a lot about the writing of these last two episodes. I truly think that they there weren't that. It's not 100% great. However, I do think that the idea of doing a challenge at the quick side is amazing because it's an idea that was brought up, right? We saw contestants go there off screen, they got things, but that means that it's a location in the world. Take advantage of it, make it a design, make it a proper place, right? And add it into the pool of places that we know for future. Yes, that's smart. That's very smart. The challenge is very simple. Skip a rubber stone 3 times. So, that is the challenge. It is, relatively complicated because you can't just skip a stone. You have to specifically know that you can skip a stone 3 times, call over the sketch marker, and then skip the stone, right? So you have to be very confident about your capability. You can't YOLO it, you kind of have to, there needs to be an air of knowledge there, which is kind of, it kind of adds a little bit of a situation. But, yeah, other than that, it ends up being interesting. I'm not 100% sure why it's kind of like I'm not sure why Sketch Marker doesn't put in a little bit more effort to stand on a platform or something and look at from above. You could, I don't know, get a lift. I know that yes, you're just a regular guy, but I don't know, as a lighthouse, I thought you set up the relay race or lighthouse pretty fucking well. You could do something with it. But yeah, we end up having a couple of teams do their whole shenanigans, and I think that the main problem that these teams kind of face is not like a writing problem, just kind of an in-universe problem, is that these characters are so kind of locked into the worldview. They're very locked into the worldview. A character nearly won't listen out someone else. Club Penguin's no, I'm not helping. Why? No, because I'm not helping. Yeah. But FTF is no, you have to help. And it's wait, we can do the challenge anyways. And it's nope. Won't do the challenge unless it's that guy who does it. And it's bro, what is this freaking playground bullshit? And same thing goes for other fellas. Kind of with ABC logo. No, kind of with Kids Ball 7.420 and the finding shit. It's well, nope, I will not be searching. But then even ABC logo joins them. It's no, you can go find one. It's in the last episode, and it sounded like it was a fucking give up. It's crazy, but yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, I like how ABC Logo's questions keep getting answered in the dumbest way possible. But yeah, and I like how Barry consistently has the suggestion of just having everybody try. I think that's a pretty good go, But yeah, thankfully the featureless text cube ends up skipping the stone 1 million times. So good job to them. What else do these fellas do? Who else does it? I don't know. Oh yeah, the man. Okay, wait. Oh yeah, that team dips off because they want to explore, right? They want to get to see the place more because, I don't know, they can't do that off challenge. And then Bushy and Manners left there, so Bushy just kind of yeets 3 rocks. I mean, it technically skipped 3 times, if that means doing 1 skip 3 times, right? So I guess. But yeah, they end up being just gaslighting Sketch Marker into being safe, so they are safe. The fan fella ends up turning on the fan and getting the skips on, which the other fellas get confused because yo, hold on, you are a fan? When it's yes, you are a fan, technically. It says not found, which I think is interesting. I'm not sure. I get, it's a setup to something, how they're hallucinating. I think it'd be interesting, especially if it's something hey, the fan is not, actually, the fan doesn't know that their resource can't be found, or something like that, right? They see themselves as a fan, but the others don't. You see, there's a cool idea that you can do with that. However, yeah, they end up just kind of being safe. Flaggy ends up just managing to do it. I like how even Garbage gets annoyed at the rating that it keeps being because of the pile of grass. Lighthouse fails to skip a stone 3 times, about 1 million times. Lighthouse has weaknesses, I know, right? And they end up losing the challenge because of just relentless attempting. Because, I mean, okay, well, the freaking Mio Haters team, or whatever it's called, ends up completely flopping because nobody there knows how to skip a stone, which is interesting. However, it's Sketch Marker obviously just calls them safe. No, you're too nice. Okay, here's the deal with nice hosts. You need to understand, a nice host can still respect the rules. A nice host is supposed to respect the rules. They just aren't mean while doing it. They enforce rules, but they don't like violently do extra stuff, right? Like it's not, but instead the team just doesn't know how to skip a stone. Yes, that's their problem. No, if they formed an entire team of eight no, sorry, an entire team of seven that's completely incapable of doing anything, that's like, bruh. Like what are we on? But yes, of course they get given the benefit of the doubt. And the thing about it is that team just doesn't try. Like I'm telling you, this team sucks. Like just in terms of just pure ability, this team sucks. They're getting, I mean, they get given the benefit of the doubt so that another team can go out. But that team genuinely is horrific. Like just in terms of skill. Like I don't mean like they're entertaining to look at, but like they're just bad. In terms of challenge. Yes, overall. Hazel ends up coming in and doing the challenge while the other fellas were wondering. Very close Lighthouse to eventually skipping a stone 3 times, but they end up being up for elimination alongside Blue iPhone Plug, Grenade, Pizza Plate, Rainbow Star, and Tent. Who got out? No idea. Actually, I would have genuinely no clue, because Lighthouse did fail. And Grenade was annoying about it. However, in both of those situations, I mean, like, they at least gave it an attempt, right? They were at least there. Blue iPhone Plug was kind of nowhere to be seen. Tent hasn't shown up in about 2 episodes since when they dipped off to do pranks, right? And I mean, like, I would have guessed Tent. Okay, who would I guess? I would have probably guessed somebody like Tent. I'm not gonna lie, because it's like they just haven't shown up in like 2 episodes, you know. And it's like, yo, where are you at? Right? So I would probably say Tent, but we'll see. Who ended up getting the most votes? Out of curiosity. Because I don't think it was Tent. Hold on. Let me check. It was Blue iPhone Plug. Blue iPhone Plug. Wait. Got 556. Yeah, no, that's the other one. Yeah, that was the other option. But you see, Lighthouse doesn't get nearly any votes. Yeah, because they were doing the challenge. Rainbow Star and Ivor. Grenade gets some for being mean. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. And then Blue iPhone Plug gets the most kind of by chance. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if what I would have predicted, but like, I had kind of already seen those. So I think that prediction, I don't think that prediction counts, you know, just saying. But yeah. And then the final scene of the episode is, hey, do you think about how much we sit? And then they're like, yeah. And then they don't do anything. Yeah, I mean, gonna be 100% honest, I'm not sure I was too fond of the direction where this is going. I think that the challenges were kind of trying to right themselves in a weird way, especially in OFA 4. This episode is like a little bit more normal, however, it's just kind of odd, and like, it has so many characters who don't do shit. Right, because like it's kind of weird, because like it has the gag that half of the teams don't do anything, and then the other gag is, and then for the teams that aren't that gag, like half of the contestants have disappeared from the scene. And it's like for a show with a cast of 49, it genuinely feels like there's only about 12 people on it. You know, like it really, like there's the amount of little contribution that, for example, a character like Bed, the amount of contribution that Bed has made to a challenge, 0. Bed has helped in no challenge. They were apparent in one scene at the start of one of the freaking, I don't know, episode 2 or something, right, with the ball, and it was a very funny gag, but other than that, they have done 0 contributions in 4 episodes. Like, it's just it suffers from the writing of Rich Get Richer, right, where it's like you write a character that's like kind of the main one, and like kind of like you write a character, you start an arc, and that just keeps going, but then as it keeps going, it kind of ends up being, it ends up just kind of causing more and more of a problem, you know. So it creates more and more of a divide where you don't have anything to write for this character, you have to write something for that character. Well, but you know what to write for that character and you're inspired. Well, yes, but you have to kind of force yourself to balance it out, because otherwise, why the fuck you put the character in the cast if you're not going to use them? You know, like, I don't know if the show was going in a good direction, in a direction that I personally liked. Although I do think that it has a lot of potential. You know, an episode like 1B, great episode. Like, truly is a great episode. And I think even episode 2, like, I think, yeah, I think, hold on, wait, was it episode 2? What episode 2? Was episode 2 the drawing one? No, wait, what was it? Oh yeah, it was the Finding the Baton. No, episode 2 was Sharpening the Pencils. No, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, even like episodes 1B to 3, I think were pretty solid. And then yeah, I kind of think that it definitely petered off. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it really improved animation quality. I mean, it was hard to bump it up because it was already pretty high, so like you don't notice it too much on that end. Voice acting remains the same, and then the writing just kind of got weird because they got bored. So yeah, I don't know if I was too big of a fan of OFA. However, I do think that it's got massive potential. And like for a situation, just like how we kind of had this conversation for Moss. I guess we can have a little bit of this of this conversation for OFA. I mean, OFA is cancelled. Okay, OFA is not happening. However, could it? Because one of those things where it's like, I mean, look, I understand that it said that it discontinued production. However, it's still A, fun to theorize, and B, not everything is always sacred, right? Like BFDA was definitively cancelled for about like 10 years, and then for about like 10 years, and then they brought it back. Like it was definitely a thing. Like shows can technically restart, and I think OFA still holds up pretty well, right? Like the only thing that maybe doesn't hold up is like the cast. No, but even then, the cast, there's nothing like super outdated about the cast. There's characters like Hazel that aren't very, normal, like very up to date, and maybe some of the kids bobs, but even then, like there's no character that feels directly like it's stuck in the time, you know. Like it's stuck in the realm of the show, but like Club Penguin logo. But even then, I think Club Penguin's already shut down. Like you see, none of it, barely any felt like super outdated. So I think that this show, if it wanted to, I think it could. Do I think it would do well? Sure. I do think that as a return, it could. I think it would work in today's day and age. I think it would work. I think like it's got that right attitude. Where like a bunch of characters, they end up kind of being memorable for how kind of nonchalant they take things. So I do think that it could work well with the current OSC audience. I do think that it would have I do think that the episodes hold up, so I think continuing it is fair. Like, it wouldn't need a reboot or anything. And overall, I do think that the show had a lot of potential, and the characters did allow for some interesting dynamics when they aren't just be like, oh, I don't want to do that challenge. There's that, bruh. So, yeah, I do think that OFA definitely sits on a pile of possibility, Do I believe that OFA will ever return? No, I don't believe that, because at the end of the day, there's one important detail. It was the tip from Diamondcup in the OSC tips video, which is remember to have fun. When making OFA, they were not having fun, and therefore they were not making OFA. So yes, but I am just gonna say, in my opinion, if for some reason in history OFA was in the debating room, could it return? My personal opinion would be yes. I think it could, and it would do well. However, of course, it won't. But yeah, OFA stands as a relatively solid product. Of yet again, it's a product of a time. Yeah, like it really gives off that BFB. Like it was one of those shows that, like, out of like major shows to perform the BFB style, all right, and kind of give us, here's how a BFB style would work if it was different. I think that this was one of the first, and it was one of the first major ones. Again, OFA 1B has 1 million views, right? Which a lot of shows from that time really don't, like you'll notice. So it was definitely one of the biggest from that time frame, and I think it opened up the theoretical for quite a bit. However, as the theoretical started to kind of fade, I think the show definitely fades out a little bit, especially with its big hiatuses and everything. It faded out. However, I think that with how it is, a fade back in would be possible. So yeah, I still do believe it's possible, even if it started fading towards the end of its lifetime, as the BFB, as like the novelty of a BFB but different started to run out. I think that, yeah, overall, Diamond Cup is cool. Did you know? And the OFA is cool. It's got a lot of cool characters. Got a lot of cool potential. Somebody go make an OFA alt. And yeah. Okay. So I think that's all for the discussion piece that I have on on Object Filler. I didn't want to add anything else to this video. I wanted the Object Filler video to be a special because I don't. It's one of the top dogs, and I think top dogs deserve a special. Okay. That is going to be also outro time. Alright, that will be all for today's object catch-up. Yes, I wanted to do a special, even though it's just a request, because, well, first of all, I don't have time to fit anything else in, first of all, like, it's so late, but other than that, yeah, I just think that Object Filler, I think it's a show that deserved its own episode, and as a request, I think that it is valid, for it to have its own situation, so, yeah, and especially, also, considering how old of a request it is, I think, at least it can get its own video to celebrate how old of a request it is. It's like, what, it's nearing 3 weeks old at this point. Like, it's a while. So yeah, alright. So that will be all for Object Filler. We are probably caught up for the rest of time. Yeah, we'll see what we're gonna do tomorrow. I think I dropped the thing. I might watch it. I don't know. I need to debate whether I'm going to do that, but that is the Object Filler catch up. But yeah, there's going to be more specials along the way. Like, the specials are definitely, like, they're incoming. This week is kind of special week, like, it just happened, and I'm kind of huddled them up more together. Okay, that's all. Goodbye.